Hi, I'm Eleanor. I've always been the dependable one in my family. The one who keeps everything together, the one who doesn't make a fuss. Life was always simple for me, or at least, I thought it was. I lived in a modest apartment, worked a steady job, and didn't ask for much. But that all changed on a Wednesday afternoon, one I'll never forget. I had just sat down at my desk, ready to get back to work after a quick coffee break. The warm mug in my hands felt comforting as I set it down, savoring the quiet of my apartment. But then, the unexpected happened. My phone rang. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but I answered thinking it was a work call. The voice on the other end was smooth, professional, and far too calm for the situation. "Hello? Is this Eleanor Parker?" I hesitated. "Yes, this is Eleanor," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, but something about the way he said my name made my stomach twist. Then the words that followed felt like a punch to the gut. "This is Charles from Liberty National Bank. We're calling regarding your overdue mortgage balance of $3,000. My heart stopped. I didn't own a house. I didn't even have a car that could be worth that much. There had to be some mistake. I quickly told him that he had the wrong person, but he insisted. "Ma'am, the documents we have show your full name, date of birth, and social security number. You are listed as the primary borrower on the loan taken out 3 years ago." 3 years ago. I felt like the floor had dropped out beneath me. My mind raced. Around that time, my younger sister Jessica had been talking about wanting a bigger house, something she could never afford on her own. Was this connected to that? Had my family done something without telling me? The phone call continued, but I couldn't focus on the details anymore. My head was spinning. I hung up quickly, hoping the conversation had been a mistake. But deep down, I already knew it wasn't. Something was horribly wrong, and I was at the center of it. The unease in my chest grew with each passing second. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust. It was about the betrayal of the one person who always thought they were invisible, the one who did everything right, the one who never caused trouble. And now, this. I had to find out what had really happened. The phone call wasn't over. I could feel the tension mounting as the bank agent calmly went over the details once again. He was polite, but there was no warmth in his voice, no sign that he even recognized how serious this was for me. "Ma'am, as I mentioned, we show your name on the loan documents and the balance is overdue." He repeated his words, cutting through the fog of confusion in my mind. I could hardly breathe. I wanted to argue, to shout, but I couldn't get the words out. "I didn't sign for this loan," I managed to say, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to stay composed. "Are you sure you have the right person?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied smoothly, not missing a beat. "All the information we have matches your details." There was no room for negotiation, no room for error. This wasn't a mistake. The bank wasn't wrong. It was my name on the line, and I had no idea how or why it was there. As I sat there in stunned silence, my mind began to race. 3 years ago, Jessica, my younger sister, had been talking constantly about upgrading to a bigger house. She had always dreamed of something grand, even though she had no way of affording it. At the time, I thought it was just a passing phase, her usual tendency to chase after things that were just out of reach. But now, it all clicked into place. My parents. They always acted like Jessica needed extra help, like she couldn't quite get her life together without a little boost. And there I was, the responsible one, the one who never needed anything, the one who always picked up the pieces. I had always played my part, never causing trouble, never asking for help. But somehow that had made me invisible. It had made me the one they could rely on when things went wrong. And now it was clear that my family, the people I loved and trusted the most, had signed me up for a debt I never agreed to. They hadn't even asked me. They hadn't warned me. I couldn't believe it. I kept replaying the memories in my mind, the way they spoke about Jessica, like she could do no wrong, like she deserved everything she wanted no matter the cost. They always made excuses for her. "She's just going through a rough patch," they'd say. "She needs a little more help." Meanwhile, I was expected to pick up the slack to be the good daughter, the one who never caused a fuss. The more I thought about it, the more it stung. I wasn't just angry at the situation. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. How had I let myself become this invisible? How had I let my parents take advantage of me in this way, without even bothering to ask if I was okay with it? The betrayal I was feeling wasn't just about money. It was about trust, about being treated like I didn't have a voice, like I was just an extension of their needs. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I quickly wiped them away. I couldn't let myself break down, not yet. I needed to focus. I had to figure out how to fix this, how to protect myself. And as I sat there feeling more isolated than I ever had before, I realized something else. If I didn't do something now, this would define the rest of my life. I spent the entire night going through every file I had, desperately hoping to find some proof that the bank had made a mistake. My mind raced, but my hands trembled as I pulled out every piece of paper I could find. Old bank statements, credit reports, any document that might give me some clue. When I finally opened the mortgage papers, my breath caught in my throat. The signature on the loan agreement was clearly not mine. I knew every curve of my own handwriting, every little flaw that made it unmistakable. This signature was too perfect, too neat, and it wasn't mine. The reality hit me hard, like a punch to the gut. My parents had done this. They had forged my name on a $500,000 mortgage loan without telling me, without even asking for my consent. The anger that surged through me was like a fire burning through the confusion, leaving nothing but raw fury in its wake. How could they do this? How could they betray me like this, without even a second thought? The people I had trusted the most had made me a part of their mess without ever considering how it would affect me. I couldn't sit still. I grabbed my phone and called the bank again, demanding that they send me more information. As I waited for the agent to speak, I could feel the weight of the betrayal sinking deeper into my chest. They hadn't just put me in debt, they had stolen my future, my stability. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I refused to let this go unchecked. I had to fight for myself, even if it meant going up against my family. As I gathered evidence, the more everything started to make sense. Everything from the past that I had brushed off, thinking it was just normal family dynamics. I had always been the responsible one, the one who never needed help. I worked hard, kept my head down, and did my part without complaint. But Jessica, my younger sister, had always been the one who needed more. She had the grand ideas, the dreams of a bigger house, the lifestyle that always seemed just out of reach. But my parents had always found a way to make it work for her, to make sure she got what she wanted, even if it meant taking advantage of me. Looking back, it was clear now. My parents had always given Jessica what she needed and wanted, no matter the cost. And I, the one who always did what I was told, who never asked for anything, was the one they used when they needed someone to make it all work. I had been invisible in my own family, always taking care of things without ever being asked for my opinion or given the chance to decide what was best for me. My sister had the privilege of making mistakes and getting bailed out while I had to stay in the background, the good daughter who didn't make a fuss. I realized that everything I had done for them, every sacrifice, had been in vain. They didn't see me. They saw a tool to fix their problems, someone who could be counted on when things went wrong. But this was different. This time, I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I wasn't going to sit back and let them dictate my life anymore. The anger burned in my chest, but it was mixed with something else, determination. I had never stood up for myself like this before. I had always been the peacekeeper, the one who quietly absorbed everything without complaining. But now, I knew I had to change. I had to take control of my life, of my future. Tomorrow, I will confront them. I would get the answers I needed. No more hiding. No more pretending everything was fine. This wasn't just about a loan or money anymore. It was about my dignity, my right to stand up for myself, and my need to be heard. The confrontation was coming, and I was ready to face it head on. Sunday dinners at my parents' house had always been the same, the familiar smell of pot roast filling the air, the sound of the TV humming in the background, and the usual chatter. Jessica was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone while Mom hovered around the kitchen, making sure everything was just right. Dad sat in his favorite chair, half watching a football game, his beer balanced carefully on the armrest. It felt like any other Sunday, but nothing was the same anymore. I sat quietly, my heart pounding in my chest, as I watched them all acting as though everything was normal. They had no idea what was coming. No one had even noticed me walking in, or if they did, they didn't care. I felt like an outsider, even though I was sitting right there with them like I had been for years. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts, preparing to ask the one question that had been burning in my mind since that phone call. Finally, after the plates were cleared and the conversation had turned to Jessica's latest complaints about her expensive landscaping bill, I spoke up. "Hey, I have a question," I said, my voice calm, but steady, almost flat. The words hung in the air, and the room instantly went still. 3 pairs of eyes turned toward me, mild curiosity on their faces, as if I were about to ask where my missing scarf had gone. "Does anyone know anything about a mortgage with my name on it?" I asked, my voice unwavering. It was like the world around us paused for a moment, the ticking of the clock on the wall suddenly deafening. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. My mother was the first to react. She shifted in her seat, her smile faltering just a bit as she reached out to grab my hand. "Honey, it's not a big deal," she said, her voice too sweet, too casual, as though we were talking about the weather instead of a $500,000 loan with my name on it. "It's just paperwork. Jessica just needed a little help qualifying for her loan, and you have such good credit we thought it wouldn't be a problem." My heart sank, but I forced myself to stay composed. This wasn't just about a loan. This was about respect, trust, and boundaries. It was about the fact that they hadn't bothered to ask me if I was okay with this, or if I even knew about it. They had just assumed I'd go along with it because I always did. I looked at my mother, trying to steady my breath, keeping my voice level as I asked again. "Why didn't you tell me? Why wasn't I asked?" Jessica, who had been quiet until now, shifted uncomfortably on the couch. She glanced at Mom, then at me, her eyes darting away as if she were guilty of something. "It wasn't like that," she said, her voice defensive. "It's just paperwork. It's not a big deal. You have good credit, and we thought it would be fine." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I stayed calm, my mind racing. "It is a big deal," I said, each word heavier than the last. "I didn't sign anything. I didn't know anything about this." I could feel the tension building, the weight of my anger pressing against the walls of the room. But even as I spoke, I could see their faces, Mom's trying to downplay it, Jessica acting like it was no big deal, and Dad, as usual, sitting in silence, not offering a single word. Mom looked at me with that same tired, apologetic smile she always wore when she was trying to brush something under the rug. "Sweetheart," she said, reaching for my hand again. "It's family. Family helps family." Her voice was soft, like I was overreacting, like I was the one in the wrong for asking about something so insignificant in her eyes. It's just a little help for Jessica. It wasn't meant to hurt you. Hurt me. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. They didn't even understand why I was upset. They didn't get it. They didn't realize that this wasn't just about paperwork or helping out a family member. It was about the fact that they had made a decision for me without even thinking about how it would affect me. They saw it as something simple, something to smooth over. But for me, it felt like a betrayal of everything I had been to them. I nodded slowly, keeping my face neutral. I had to fight the anger rising in my chest. Thanks for explaining, I said, my voice quieter now. I stood up, my legs shaky beneath me, and turned toward the door. I didn't look back. There was nothing more to say. They hadn't heard me, and they wouldn't. As I walked out the door, I felt a quiet rage burning inside me, but it was mixed with something else, clarity. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I wasn't going to play along, keep pretending everything was fine. I was done. The real storm wasn't coming with shouting or tears. It would come quietly in the form of a decision, and I was ready to make it. The moment I walked out of my parents' house, something shifted inside me. I wasn't the same person who had walked in. I felt a calm determination settling into my bones, replacing the anger and confusion that had been there just hours before. I didn't need to wait for an apology or understanding from them. I had spent too many years letting others control the narrative of my life. This time, it was my turn to decide what came next. The first step was to find a lawyer. I called a few local firms, explaining the situation briefly. By the end of the day, I had an appointment with someone who specialized in financial fraud. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew that I was finally taking control of my future. I was no longer the daughter who silently cleaned up other people's messes. I was a woman ready to fight for what was rightfully mine. The night before my meeting, I spent hours going through every document I could find. I pulled out old bank statements, credit reports, and the loan papers that had changed everything. I made sure everything was organized, every page numbered, and filed. For the first time, I felt like I was doing something for myself. I wasn't just gathering evidence to fight the loan. I was gathering strength to face whatever came next. When I sat down with the lawyer the next day, I knew I had made the right decision. He looked through the documents, nodding as he went. When he finished, he looked at me seriously and said, "This is a case of identity theft fraud. We can fight this, but it won't be easy." I didn't hesitate. "I'm ready," I said, my voice steady. He outlined the steps I would need to take: file a police report, notify the bank in writing, and begin the long process of disputing the loan. There was no guarantee that it would all be resolved quickly, and he warned me it could get ugly. But in that moment, I didn't care about the difficulty or the time it would take. I wasn't afraid anymore. For once, I felt empowered. I left his office with a plan in place. I knew that the road ahead would be long and uncertain, but it no longer felt like a weight on my shoulders. It felt like a path I had chosen, one I was walking with my head held high. The anger I had felt just days before had been replaced by a quiet confidence. I had taken the first step, and no matter what happened, I would see it through. Over the next few days, I continued gathering more evidence. I made calls, sent emails, and organized everything I could. As each day passed, I felt more in control, more certain of what I had to do. My family's betrayal no longer felt like a shadow looming over me. Instead, it became the catalyst for my transformation. They had underestimated me, and now I was proving them wrong. When I looked at the documents I had gathered, I didn't see just a stack of papers. I saw my future, my freedom. I wasn't the quiet daughter anymore. I was someone who would no longer let others decide my fate. And as I moved forward, I knew one thing for sure: I would fight for myself no matter what. It's strange how something as simple as silence can feel like the most powerful statement of all. I thought back on everything I had gone through: the confusion, the anger, the hurt. But now, none of it held power over me anymore. I had found peace not through their apologies or understanding, but through standing up for myself. I no longer carried the weight of their expectations, their manipulations, or their judgments. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from the roles they had assigned me, free from the constant need to prove myself, free from the toxic patterns I had lived with for so long. My future was mine to shape, not dictated by anyone else's choices. I could finally breathe without feeling like I was suffocating under the weight of my family's needs. They had taught me how to be strong, but now I was learning how to be strong for myself without their influence. Looking back at everything, I realized how much power I had given away, but now I understood that I didn't owe them anything. I owed them no anger, no explanation, and certainly no forgiveness on their terms. They had drawn their line in the sand, and I had drawn mine. And with that quiet realization, I knew I had taken control of my own life. I walked away from that chapter, no longer bound by the need to fit into a role I hadn't chosen for myself. I had let go of the past, and in doing so, I had created a future that was entirely mine. My independence wasn't just a new beginning, it was my declaration that I would no longer be invisible, that I would no longer be the daughter who always stayed silent. I had stepped into my own life, and for the first time, I felt completely whole. I owed them nothing, not my time, not my energy, and not my peace. With that truth in my heart, I smiled to myself, knowing that this was the first day of the rest of my life. A life that was mine and mine alone.